Okay, good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Thursday, July 12th, Sacramento Metro Fire Board of Directors meeting. If we can get a pledge of the flag, Dr. Clark.
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. The open session meeting is videotaped for cablecast on Metro Cable 14, replay on Saturday, July 14, 2018 at 1 p.m. and Sunday, July 15, 2018 at 1 p.m. on Channel 14. Webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. The open session meetings are also available for viewing on district website at www.metrofire.ca.gov. Right now is a public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within the district jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
There are no speakers this evening.
Thank you very much. We'll be moving on to the consent items. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I move consent.
I second.
I have a motion and a second, Madam Clerk.
Director Gale.
Yes.
Gould.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
And Barnes.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Moving on to action items, a tax exchange agreement with City of Folsom Corp Yard annexation. Jeff Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Directors, Chief Harms. Just want to take a couple of minutes this evening and talk you through a staff recommendation to approve a resolution authorizing the fire chief to approve a tax agreement with the City of Folsom. So a little bit of background on this. Several years ago, the City of Folsom had proposed a large annexation of about 3,600 acres south of Folsom, or south of 50, commonly referred to either the south of 50 annex or the planned area. Along with that plan, obviously Folsom needed to demonstrate they could provide services to the influx in the growing population. The city had noted that their corporation yard and their lands and properties they own to provide those services were going to be inadequate over time. And so as they began to assess their current holdings on properties, they determined that there was a need to move outside of the current city limits and the plan area and annex an additional area to build a corporation yards where they can house all those services and county or city vehicles, So about a year ago, city had approached Metro Fire discussing a potential annexation, just kind of giving us a heads up that it was coming. It took them several months to prepare all the supporting documentation. They reached out again this spring, gave us an opportunity to comment on the MSR, the service review, and the proposed SOI amendment. At which point in time we did comment about fire protection in the area. And just within the last month or so, I think they've filed a petition with LAFCO to move forward with that annexation. So this agreement is essentially coming out of that petition. We actually had the opportunity to sit down with the city and direct negotiate this tax exchange agreement, which is our preferred method. Not sure if everyone is aware, but that doesn't necessarily have to happen under LAFCO law. The county can negotiate on the behalf of special districts. We preferred and made a motion to LAFCO to negotiate on our behalf. LAFCO at the time essentially formalized a letter recommending that cities directly negotiate or include special districts in that annexation process. So, as I said, this is our preferred method, a direct negotiation with the cities. The agreement itself is largely modeled after the larger annexation, the plan area of the 3,600 acres. The language is extensively the same. What changes is essentially the size and proposed uses and some of the language. The agreement itself, just to walk you through a little bit of the fiscal impact, because it can be a little confusing. We agree with the City of Folsom to a tax exchange of 4.22%. That is language that carries over from that larger annexation. In this case, since the entire use is proposed as public use, either for city or other purposes, there is no generation of property tax revenues. So while it says there is a 4.22% tax share, it's 4.22% of nothing, essentially. So The cost to Metro Fire is, I estimate, to be maybe a couple of $100 a year, no more than $500 a year. The agreement was reviewed by council. Council did have a couple of comments we sent back to city. City agreed to those. So I think we feel good about the structure and the form of the agreement. Lastly, next steps. This agreement, along with some other proposed attachments, will go back to the LAFCO for consideration along with the MSR. So as I understand it, the city was sent this to the council, this agreement to council on Tuesday. We're here before you today, on Thursday. If approved, the entire package will be heard by LAFCO, I believe, at the end of this month or early next month. Okay, so that's where we stand at this point in time. Oh, service-wise, I'd like to mention that 63 is the closest station. This area will remain in 63's rural response area for quite a while. At some point in time, City of Folsom, when there are more houses built in the annex area, Folsom will need to build a new station, what I call the West Station. At that point in time, this proposed annexation will be in that station's first due. So with that said, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I have a compliment. The county does not have those provisions over an independent district. Only for dependent ones, the county make those kind of decisions for.
The county has the right,
Not over independent districts.
I believe they do, under the current state law.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments?
I have another question.
Sure.
We have an agreement with, in North Highlands, with that organization there was supposed to be providing better service, police service, etc. I hope we had the recording of it because I looked at the minutes. It was in the comments I made and suggestions. Do you ever go to the one on Watt Avenue, that improvement district? Do you ever attend those meetings?
Are we talking about the Watt Avenue P-bid?
That is correct.
I do on occasion when,
I've never seen you there.
yeah, I've been there a couple of times, sure.
Okay.
I would say most of my communications with them are telephone and email calls, as it pertains to some of the property that the district owns in the area.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion on this?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we adopt.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, Madam Clerk.
Dr. Gale,
No.
Gould,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
and Barnes.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Fry, for your presentation. Appreciate you representing us in all areas, including the P-bids.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Moving on to the reports, President's Report. I do not have any right now, so we'll move on to the Fire Chief's Report. Chief Harms.
Good evening, President Barnes and board members. It's been a couple of weeks. It's been a very busy couple of weeks. We had a California Metro Fire Chiefs Conference call this morning. And as far as the wildland season goes, this is the worst season, or as far as a start, for the last 10 years. As of Monday, they have 196,000 acres has burned in the state. Last year, and as busy as last year was, at this time there was 68,000 acres that were burned during that time. We have a few people that are in here that have been out on the road with a few of these fires, and Chief Bridge will talk about more about that in his report. But this year is already far above and beyond what last year was, and last year was very busy. And if you look back over the last 10 years, we're setting records. A couple of retirements. Battalion Chief Brad Schumacher with 23 years retired, along with Assistant Chief Chris Quinn with 27 years. Effective July 17th, and she's in the back of the room, is Barbie Law. Barbie Law will be promoted to the Assistant Chief rank and will be the Assistant Chief in charge of EMS. So, Barbie, congratulations. There you go. Effective on the 12th, Adam House is the Battalion Chief for training and moving forward. We've had a number of meetings, kind of command staff meetings. Myself and Chief Johnson went to the Rancho Cordova Chamber meeting the other night of annual elected officers reception. That was very well attended over there. We made some contacts with Rancho Cordovan about Measure H. If you remember, Measure H is a opportunity for some funding. We turned in a packet this past year and we were not selected, but we've been able to go back and talk to them again, and we're going to come back to the table and talk about what those opportunities were connected with fire prevention. And we had a pretty significant wildland fire last week over by the Aerojet area. The Vice President of Operations over there with AMPAC, which is one of the agencies around there, we met with him that last week, or actually this week, and talked about our operations and working together and moving forward. One last thing was that we were watching really close was a House bill, AB 2118, was a bill that looked at an IGT program for fire-based and for reimbursement. We pretty much know at this point it has made it to the governor's desk, but it is not going to be signed. We're working with our consultants and working on the QAF bill that was passed last year. In the fire service, there will be winners and losers in that. Due to our transport and our demographics, we will be one of the people that will be the winners. This is the second year for AB 2118 in the IGT. Cal Chiefs, along with a number of groups, are going to continue and try to work through the issues that came up at the very end of it. That ends my report unless you have some questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the chief? Okay, moving on to the operations report. Chief Bridge.
Good evening, President Barnes, directors, Eric Bridge, Deputy Chief Operations. As Chief Harms mentioned earlier, it has been busy fire season, not only in the state but here locally. We have most of our resources returning from a lot of the fires, but we have a really good relationship with the Amador El Dorado unit, and we've been able to help them out for the last several years, and currently we have one of our engines up there providing coverage for them while they're continuing to fight the almost 200,000 acres that are happening throughout the state. So they'll be returning to us on Friday, so that's good news. So we'll be full staff, but we are backfilling for them so we're not missing out on coverage in our own area. With that, last week we had multiple fires everywhere. One was a 2-alarm fire that was mostly handled with the first alarm assignment, but due to the heat we like to provide relief, and that was in the Battalion 9 area with a shed fire that started up in the middle between 2 homes and took off, causing damage to 2 homes there. But we did good. The crews did a fantastic job salvaging all the materials and the furnishings inside the homes. There was a 30-acre vegetation fire in the Parkway, also over by the Clay Banks area, that provided multiple challenges for our crew members just due to the terrain and topography and the cobblestones that are all piled up in there. It's not a necessarily very easy fire to extinguish. So they were creative. They were out there for a long time. Logistics became an issue, multiple operational period, because just of all the overhaul that's involved with the different fuel types. So the crews were out there for many, many hours, and then of course that gets our logistics folks involved because we need to be able to provide them some food and refreshments and things to keep them going. The big one, of course, the chief mentioned the 215-acre grass fire over there on Oregon Street in Aerojet. That was a very well orchestrated fire by our command staff and by the crews on the ground. They did a very good job of coordinating a plan of putting a big box around it to identify where we were going to contain it, because one of the main exposures being some of that volatile equipment that they have over at AMPAC at Aerojet. So good coordination with the folks at Aerojet and with our folks, and it had a successful outcome. Also, we were able to utilize some of our senior staff chief officers to assist the city of Sacramento due to the drawdown, because a lot of these fires broke out at the same time. And so we ended up utilizing the assistance of our chiefs there, Chief Shannon, Chief Casantini, to head over to Grant High School where they had a 2-alarm fire. And 3 of the 4 chief officers were from our command staff helping out the folks over there because they were busy. They were on multiple alarm fires as well, so everybody was tapped. This was kind of a crazy time. And there was several other multiple alarm fires in the city that our crews were assisting with them with as well. So again, a busy couple of weeks good news, Copter 2 is back, and they're providing coverage now, while Copter 1 is going in for their scheduled 100-hour maintenance, so that's good. And then, again, our dozer did a great job on that fire off of Oregon Street, too. Both our dozers actually put into work and did a fantastic job. And then I think, lastly, live fire training. Got some good opportunities for our folks to get some more live fire training off Folsom Boulevard. There was some property donated by the church there, and we're able to provide us multiple training opportunities the other day, and we're going to have another one Sunday morning. So lots happening out there, and crews are doing a fantastic job, and really good things. So with that, happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yes. Thank you, Chief Bridge. Just a request, please. Could you make sure it's put out on social media about the practice on Sunday morning for that church? Is that about 9701 or so?
I believe that's correct, and
Bart?
I'll double check over here with our PIO and everything.
Just
I
to
believe
make sure, because there was a lot of traffic on, no, not a lot. There was some traffic on Nextdoor, that app, and it's just a way help to inform the residents of there'll be training activity in the area.
Yeah, and I
Thank
know
you.
our PIO is on that all the time, and I know sometimes it gets missed by some of our community members, but we're going to continue to put it out there, and we'll find every opportunity to make sure everybody's aware. But I do know there's a lot of coordination happening. I was briefed today about all the different people that were notified, including law enforcement and community members. But I'll double check to make sure that's happening too.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That'll be this Sunday, sir?
Yes, this Sunday
Thank you.
morning, about 8 a.m.
Thank you. Director Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, thanks for that report. I just have one question. As we've heard about all of this record-breaking events that are already starting, and we're pretty early in the summer, one of the things I was actually having some dinner in the Parkway when she lit off.
Oh.
And there were some people, I wasn't in the park close enough to see it, but I had a lot of questions coming my way about why that was going, and lots of our apparatus were going, but one piece of apparatus was not. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have a way to explain away the fact that we didn't have Copter 1 or 2 or whichever one would have flown, why it wasn't there at the time. And so I'm just wondering if we have a policy that identifies the matrix of when that resource will be in our community and when it won't be. Right. It'd be nice for maybe me and my colleagues to have something that we would be a little bit better informed on, of this is why the helicopter's not up, or maybe it's out. But I just think that as these kind of things are happening, we pushed for a long time the need to have this piece of equipment in our community, specifically for the Parkway. That was a major thrust behind it. And I just want to make sure that we ensure the community that we're making decisions, and I know you are, but we're making decisions based on the needs of this community, even though there may be a big old fire, several 100,000 acres occurring someplace else. That asset was purchased for this community, and unless we have some really compelling arguments, I'd like to know what the decision matrix is before that thing lifts off and goes fight a fire someplace else.
Yeah.
They can buy their own and go through the political hoo-ha-ha about having an airframe in our building, but I'd just like to have a little bit better, because I kind of came up with, it's probably down for maintenance or it's whatever.
And I'll confirm it
out.
exactly on that fire what its availability was. But I can assure you, though, none of our air assets will be anywhere other than here. So my only assumption is at that point, and I'll look into it, it was down for maintenance. We had the opportunity to send our helicopter out to the Pawnee fire a couple of weeks ago, but Copter 2 was still having its repairs. So we said no. So we keep it here. Now, if we have both of them available and up and going and they're not in maintenance, then yeah, we can send one. But so if there's no air resources flying in our area, it's because it's a maintenance issue. So we always make sure our priorities are area as well first. Now, granted, with that said, you can go right up the hillside here into Placerville and some of those others, and if that starts to burn and people are losing homes, our copter would most likely end up right there on initial attack.
Sure.
And then the unfortunate part is we don't have any control about all of a sudden things are lighting up over here on the Parkway again.
Right.
But we'll prioritize like CAL FIRE does and just like the state does. Air resource will be prioritized based off of life and property. Mm-hmm. So if they're continuing to burn homes somewhere, and it may not be our first area, but it might be El Dorado Hills or Cameron Park, we'll continue to stay there versus the grass that
Right.
might be burning off of Jackson Highway or something.
Good.
Does
Well,
that make- if that
thank
makes
you
sense.
for that explanation, and
Yeah.
I'm glad my answer was nearly correct.
Yeah, and I'll confirm it and get back to you and
No,
close the
that's
loop on
fine.
it with you.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. No other comments? We'll go ahead and thank you
Yeah,
for the
you bet.
report. I appreciate it. Moving on to local 522 report. We have a new voice this time. I like it.
Good evening, Chair, Chief Harms, senior staff. My name is Sean Scollard. I'm a firefighter paramedic and a representative for 522 on B shift. I'm here this evening on behalf of 522 and Trevor Jameson, who's unable to be here, and he apologizes for that. We hope everybody had a great 4th of July. To reiterate what Chief Harms said is that this fire season's been very busy for our members, but we're maintaining a high level of performance and delivering great service to the community and its members. 522 would like to thank Chief Harms, senior staff, and the board for the support to send not only a crew but an engine to Long Beach to support Fire Captain Rosa's memorial. There was a nice contingent of Metro Fire members in attendance, including members of the Honor Guard who carried Metro Fire and Sac City flags in the procession. Our attendance was greatly appreciated by the Long Beach Fire members. It was an honor for our members to be there. We would like to give a special thanks to the Fleet Division who prepared Engine 32 for us and pretty much a 1 day's notice to get that thing roadworthy to head down to Long Beach. It was a collaborative effort that showed the best of the fire service to send those crews down there, and it wouldn't have happened without the support of the board, Chief Harms, and our members. So we appreciate that, and it really showed the brotherhood and sisterhood that looks out for one another. We look forward to the collaborative movement moving forward with the board and chief and the senior staff, and that ends the report for 522. If there's any questions.
Thank you very much for the report. Any questions or comments? No. I just want to thank you for being here tonight representing 522. I also agree. The fact that we are representing down in those funerals shows that extension of the family environment of what we do in public safety, specifically the firefighting industry, especially on that senseless death. So thank you to who all went, and thank you for being here tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Moving on to committee and delegate reports. Executive committee, we do not, no, excuse me. Yeah, sorry, executive committee, we did not have a meeting, and the next meeting is to be determined. Moving on to Communications Center, JPA, Chief Johnson.
Good evening, Directors, Chief Harms. The Comm Center JPA last met June 26th here in this quarters where we discussed upgrading some of the communications equipment that's much needed. And then we also had a workshop to discuss how new members or new agencies could receive dispatch services. That's been something that's been missing. So we're discussing how that would happen if that request came through. A little bit of an update for you. On July 4th is kind of the holiday summary, if you will. Operational period 6:30 to 7:05. The Comm Center was exceptionally busy, as you heard Chief Bridge talk about a little bit. Average daily calls that come into the dispatch center is about 1,050. During this week, there was 1,975, or an 88% increase, which is pretty significant. If you look at the average daily calls per hour, you're usually about 63, 64 to about 70 calls per hour. On the 4th of July, that jumped up dramatically to 244 to 289 calls per hour. So clearly the dispatch center was very busy, as was the rest of the county. During that time period, through the week, you had 120 grass fires, which is a very big spike, 80 of which were in Metro Fire, 31 working fires, 8 of which were greater alarm fires. So the Comm Center was very busy during that time period. They also had one deployment of the communications van that's in cooperation with OES. And so they just got back today, it sounds like, from the county fire, and just acknowledged our Chief Executive Director of the JPAs in the audience. End of report.
Thank you, Chief Johnson. Any questions or comments? All right, moving on to California Fire and Rescue JPA, Chief Shannon.
We met was June 21st. We haven't met since. We'll meet on September 20th, 4 o'clock across the hall in the Sesk.
Thank you very much. Great report. Appreciate it.
That was stellar.
Moving on to the Finance and Audit Committee, there was no
Absolutely
meeting. The next meeting is scheduled Thursday, July 26th at 5:30. Policy Committee, Director Gould.
TBD. There you go, Mr.
To be
Chair.
determined. Okay, I had to figure that one out. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, should we do the board comments and questions before we go into closed session first? You okay with that?
It's up to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's fine.
I like that. We're going to go ahead. We're going to be going to closed session after this, but we'll go ahead and start with board member comments and questions, or questions and comments prior to moving into closed session, so that way all of you can head home. Starting off to my far right, Director Gale.
But appreciate it that we do record our minutes, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Activities. And I see something, missing comments or something, and that's Chief Holmes is the person who is responsible for that is being correct. Isn't that true?
It is audio recorded and video recorded that you have
of
access.
course. I mean, yeah.
Yes.
So I saw something, I made a suggestion that the organization that we were giving funds to collaborated with them. Suggested that we have a find police and the sheriff's department and other activities. It's a good idea to go to the board meetings and suggest if something is not taking place, because that could happen, from everywhere. We'll start a new committee or something, and we would like to get in on the dole or what have you. But those services are there, and I think we should utilize them. We don't need to make it a bigger government, but make it efficient. What we have.
Correct. If you're talking about the PBID, Metro,
yeah.
the Metro Fire Station is in that station. That's why we're part of that PBID. We fall within that boundary. The law enforcement is provided by the funding that comes from that PBID. So that's probably the difference. But they do attend it, and I appreciate your comments.
Of course.
Thank you. Director Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to thank all of the folks that work at this agency. I had an opportunity to be with another elected official, and this person just praised this organization for the work it's doing in that particular city in responding to the needs of those that are seeking permits. Just went on and on about just how it makes that city look very good when they can process through our metro system those applications. And it was just nice to be sitting there hearing all of that praise about the wonderful work that all of our men and women do. So thank you to everyone that does that. Congratulations to Chief Law and her promotion to EMS. That's fantastic for the community at large, frankly. And it's really exciting. As we hear all of these, we're doing more and more work. This is going to be a bad year and all of that. That's obviously puts a little bit of a shiver down my spine, because that means our men and women are going to be out there putting their lives on the line. And I think it's important that every single person within the catch of my voice hears that these men and women do this in and out every day, where the rest of us sit in our air-conditioned cars and go, wow, that looks pretty bad. They're out on the ground in 107-degree weather in their turnouts fighting those things so it doesn't come to my roof and destroy my home. And it's imperative that we constantly thank those men and women for running towards those events versus the other way. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comments, Director Gould. Moving on, Director Clark.
Yes, I would also like to thank the men and women of Metro Fire for a job well done, and appreciate the comments made by Director Gould in that regard. That's all of it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Clark. Director Sheets.
I just wanted to congratulate all the retirees and the promotions that were talked about tonight. Be safe out there. I did want to get some clarification on the dispatch of the which fire the helicopter wasn't on, because I know in one incident they did have maintenance, but they did deploy the UAV. And I'd be interested to see if that was the incident that Director Gould was talking about.
All right. Thank you. And Director Jones.
Thank you. I have a couple sets of thank yous and congratulations. One, congratulations to all the promotees and retirees. Jobs well done, both in the past and for the future. Good luck. Thanks to Chief Johnson for helping to keep Metro in the mix and be a lead. We have Epi's Great Race coming up on the 21st of July. And as usual, Metro will be out serving a safety role for approximately 2,100 participants that are registered for that day. So I really appreciate Chief Johnson's work, working with Epi's Great Race Committee and ensuring safety for everyone participating, as well as any members of the public who are on the Parkway during that time. Thank you, Chief. Also, I'd like to thank Jeff Fry for the work on the Folsom SOI and upcoming annexation amendment. It is very, very important. We went through this many years ago with air gas in terms of getting in writing certain revenue sharing agreements. And it is very challenging because the Revenue and Tax Code 99 says that the county does the bargaining for the special districts. And I know CSDA and at levels at LAFCO as well as Cal LAFCO have been trying to change that. But that's a huge lift, and it's still simmering out there. So anyway, thank you very much for making sure that gets codified in contract. Thank you, Jeff.
All right, thank you for the comments. Only a couple things I have. Number one is on July 1st, the Sheriff's Department had a Unity Community event in Rancho Cordova, and Metro Fire personnel showed up. It was great to see them, have conversation with them, most importantly, a bunch of kids interacting with them and just humanizing what we do. They see them go out and fight fires. Firefighters are always their heroes as the kids, but to see them interacting, it was great. Congratulations on the retirees. Chris Quinn is one I knew. I played football with him and against him in the Pig Bowl. He'll be missed, but he was the leadership that he had not only in the helping the fundraise for the charities, but in this organization. Chief Law, thank you. Congratulations. I've got to work with you on a personal basis in my other profession. Congratulations. Well deserved. And then Local 522, again, thank you for your representation here, continued efforts, and the leadership here. It's nice to see that those ongoing conversations as we move forward, especially as things we're moving into contract negotiations, we move forward. So again, thank you all for being here tonight. We're going to go ahead and adjourn, go into closed session. Hopefully you're not sitting here when we get out of here. Have a good night.